Ted Bundy was a name that once caused fear across America. On the surface, he did not look like a monster. He was a handsome and intelligent man, someone who could easily make you feel safe. He was studying to be a lawyer, and he even worked for a crime prevention group. This normal appearance was his greatest weapon. It allowed him to hide his dark secrets from everyone, including his friends and family. Bundy used his charm to get close to people, making them believe he was a kind and helpful person. This dangerous mask helped him become one of the most infamous serial killers in history, committing terrible crimes for many years without anyone suspecting the truth about the man they thought they knew. Bundy had a very specific and cruel method for tricking his victims. He often pretended to be hurt or in need of assistance. He would wear an arm sling or use crutches, making him appear weak and harmless. He would then approach young women and politely ask for help, perhaps to carry some books to his car or to load a sailboat onto its trailer. Because he looked like a respectable student and seemed so vulnerable, many women felt sorry for him and wanted to help. This was his trap. Once a woman was near his car, a light brown Volkswagen Beetle, he would suddenly attack, often hitting her with a heavy object like a crowbar before forcing her into the vehicle. The women Bundy chose were tragically similar. His victims were almost always young, attractive, and intelligent university students, typically in their late teens or early 20s. They were women with bright futures, full of dreams and potential. Bundy seemed to target women who reminded him of a past girlfriend, many of whom had long, dark hair parted in the middle. He stalked them on college campuses, in libraries, and even in their own apartment buildings. This pattern of choosing similar victims was a key clue for the police. But because the crimes happened in different areas, connecting them was very difficult at first for the investigators who were trying to solve the growing number of disappearances. The early investigations were filled with missed opportunities and frustrating dead ends. In 1974, several young women vanished in Washington state. Witnesses at Lake Sammamish State Park described a handsome man named Ted with his arm in a sling who asked for help with his VW Beetle. Police released a sketch, and surprisingly, Bundy's own girlfriend, Elizabeth Klopfer, recognized him and called the police. She was worried about his strange behavior and the fact that he owned a car just like the one described. However, the police received hundreds of tips and did not believe that a clean-cut law student like Bundy could be a violent killer. They dismissed the tip, and Bundy remained free to continue his horrific spree. To escape the growing police attention in Washington, Ted Bundy made a calculated move. In the autumn of 1974, he was accepted into the University of Utah Law School and relocated to Salt Lake City. This move was not just for his education. It was a way to find a new hunting ground where no one knew his name or suspected him of any wrongdoing. He left behind a terrified community and a police force that was just beginning to connect the dots. For Bundy, Utah offered a fresh start and, tragically, a new pool of unsuspecting victims. It was not long after he arrived that young women in Utah began to disappear under circumstances that were eerily similar to the cases he had left behind in the Pacific Northwest. The pattern of terror started all over again. Shortly after settling in Utah, Bundy began to kill once more, using the same methods he had perfected. He would lure his victims with a story or a plea for help before violently abducting them. The disappearances and murders spread from Utah into the neighboring state of Colorado. Police in each individual state were investigating their own local cases, but they were not communicating effectively with each other. In the 1970s, there was no national computer database for sharing information between different police departments. This lack of a connected system was a huge advantage for a killer like Bundy, who could simply cross state lines to escape suspicion and continue his crimes in a new jurisdiction. Bundy's girlfriend, Elizabeth Klopfer, became more and more convinced that he was involved in the murders. As she read news reports of missing women in Utah and Colorado, she saw that the crimes were following Bundy wherever he went. She bravely called the police again, this time speaking with detectives in Utah. reiterating her fears and sharing details about his strange habits and his car. Her repeated calls slowly started to build a case against him. At the same time, investigators from Washington, Utah, and Colorado finally began to share their files. They realized the killer they were all looking for was likely the same person, a mobile predator who was leaving a trail of death across the western United States. The first major break in the case came not from a murder investigation, but from a routine traffic stop. In August 1975, a highway patrol officer in a Salt Lake City suburb noticed Bundy's VW Beetle driving suspiciously late at night and pulled him over. When the officer searched the car, he found a terrifying collection of items that had no innocent explanation. Inside the vehicle were media group, evidence bag containing ski mask, crowbar, rope, handcuffs, and ice pick, police officer displaying contents found in suspect's care stock, distribute equally a ski mask, a crowbar, rope, handcuffs, and an ice pick. These tools of abduction, combined with the earlier tips from Elizabeth Klopfer, finally gave police the evidence they needed to look at Ted Bundy as a prime suspect. The traffic stop marked the beginning of the end of his freedom. With the discovery of the suspicious items in his car, Ted Bundy was arrested for the first time. Although police suspected him of many murders, they did not have enough direct evidence to charge him with those crimes yet. Instead, he was put on trial in Utah for the kidnapping of Carol Durange, one of the few women who had managed to escape him. He was found guilty and sentenced to prison. While he was in prison in Utah, investigators in Colorado charged him with the murder of a young woman there. Bundy was then transferred to Aspen, Colorado to face this new trial. He decided to act as his own lawyer, a move that gave him special privileges, including not having to wear handcuffs in the courthouse. This decision proved to be a disastrous mistake for the authorities. During a court hearing in June 1977, Bundy was left unsupervised in the courthouse library. Seeing his chance, he jumped out of a second-story window and ran into the mountains surrounding Aspen. A massive manhunt began, but Bundy, who was skilled at outdoor survival, managed to evade capture for 6 days. He broke into a cabin for food and supplies, but he was eventually spotted and recaptured, looking tired and hungry. His bold escape made him even more famous, turning him into a notorious celebrity fugitive. He was returned to jail, but he was already planning his next, even more audacious escape. Back in his jail cell in Colorado, Bundy spent the next 6 months carefully plotting. He acquired a hacksaw blade, likely smuggled in by a visitor, and slowly began to cut a hole in the ceiling of his cell. He lost a lot of weight so that he could fit through the small opening. On the night of December 30th, 1977, with most of the jail staff away for the holidays, he put his plan into action. He climbed through the hole, crawled through the ceiling space, and dropped into an empty apartment in the jailer's part of the building. He then changed into street clothes he had stolen and simply walked out the front door to freedom. It was days before anyone even realized he was gone. Now a free man and one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives, Bundy traveled across the country. He made his way to Florida, a state where no one was looking for him. Just 2 weeks after his escape, his reign of terror began again. On January 15, 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. In a frenzied and brutal attack that lasted only 15 minutes, he murdered 2 young women and severely injured 2 others as they slept. That same night, he attacked another student in her nearby apartment. A few weeks later, he abducted and murdered his final victim, a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach. His escape had led to one of the most violent and tragic chapters of his entire criminal career. Ted Bundy's time as a fugitive finally came to an end on February 15, 1978, not because of a brilliant detective plan, but because of a watchful police officer in Pensacola, Florida. The officer spotted a car that had been reported as stolen and pulled it over. The driver was Ted Bundy. When the officer tried to arrest him, Bundy fought back and tried to run, but he was tackled and finally subdued. At first, the officer had no idea that he had just captured one of the most wanted criminals in America. Sitting in the back of the police car, Bundy reportedly told the officer, "I wish you had killed me." His cross-country flight from justice was over for good. This time, the evidence against Bundy was overwhelming. At the Chi Omega sorority house, he had left behind crucial forensic evidence, including a distinctive bite mark on the body of one of the victims. This bite mark became a key piece of physical evidence in his Florida trial. Investigators were able to make a plaster cast of Bundy's teeth and show the jury that they were a perfect match for the mark left on the victim. This was one of the first times that bite mark evidence was used so successfully in a high-profile case. After years of denying everything, Bundy was finally cornered by science. He was found guilty of the Florida murders and sentenced to death. As his execution date grew closer, Ted Bundy began to confess. In a series of interviews with investigators, he admitted to committing 30 murders across 7 states between 1974 and 1978. However, many experts believe the true number of his victims is much higher, with some estimates suggesting he may have killed more than 100 people. He described his crimes in chilling detail, revealing the full extent of his cruelty. His confessions helped police close many cold cases and finally gave some answers to families who had been searching for their loved ones for years. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair. The story of Ted Bundy is important to remember because it teaches us a difficult lesson. It shows that evil can wear a friendly and attractive mask. Bundy used society's trust and his own intelligence to become a monster who hid in plain sight. His case changed the way police work together, leading to better communication between states and the development of national databases to track dangerous criminals. Remembering Bundy and his innocent victims reminds us of the importance of vigilance and the fact that a person's outward appearance can never truly tell us who they are on the inside. It is a dark chapter in history, but one that holds valuable lessons for protecting future generations.